speaking of members and issues and things that are happening, I'm thrilled to have with us Matthias Waschek, who is the director of the Worcester Art Museum. And Matthias, you've been here a couple times now, and we stay updated. There's a lot of momentum in the city, a lot of activity. It manifests itself in lots of different ways. But without a doubt, a lot of momentum at Worcester Art Museum under your leadership and tenure. Some recent big announcements that bode well for the future and the present of Worcester Art Museum. And why don't you kind of unpack that and tell us a little bit of what's happening?
Yes, with pleasure. So one of the big announcements was that the Worcester Art Museum has received the biggest single gift in our history, $10 million. And this gift didn't come from out of town, but from Worcester, from a philanthropist in Worcester, Jean McDonough, who has been one of the, I could say, one of the first people to push for this renaissance of Worcester. And she has a lot of philanthropic passions. The Worcester Art Museum is her second home, as she says. And she wanted to give us that boost because we are trying to do the best that we can to participate in the renaissance of Worcester and help enhance it from our side.
And I just do 2 points in that regard. I mean, the McDonough family, very special. Jean McDonough, you know, she and her husband created FlexCon. Their son, Neil McDonough, is running it. A very important manufacturer here in the region, employing hundreds of people, creating economic opportunity and jobs in manufacturing for people, but also creating the ability for them to contribute back to the community with their endowments and strategic contributions. So kind of the virtuous cycle starts with jobs and economic development to support the arts.
Absolutely, and when you think even how the Worcester Art Museum came to being, this was a small group of very philanthropic-minded industrialists who said that this city needs and deserves an art museum to bring the quality of life to the next level. I mean, an art museum is just one of many aspects that contribute to the quality of life. A well-functioning YMCA is there too. Great sports clubs are there too. Highly functioning downtown contributes to that too. So they all always believed in Worcester's capacity over now the centuries to be a magnet in the region. And what's happening now is actually phenomenal. And I can tell you also a little bit how it plays for the Worcester Art Museum.
That's what we want, yeah, absolutely.
So one of the structural problems that the museum has been dealing with when the city of Worcester was going a little bit downhill was that our visitation was actually shrinking. And what has happened over the last 8 years is that we have reached in our total visitation, 60% are now coming from Metro West and Boston.
That's great.
And we produce these heat maps, and it's really fascinating to see how things have shifted. So the dots in central Massachusetts remain of the same size. And then when you're looking east, even if you're looking towards New York, the tiny dots before, they are turning into actually respectable spots. And we hope to grow that much, much further.
No, that's really important because I think we anecdotally know, and these numbers validate that, when people come and have an experience in the city, in the region, it's generally very positive. And they'll come back, or they go back to work, or if the family, and they share that, and that grows. And it's making sure that they've got authentic, genuine experiences. And that's what you do on a regular basis at the Art Museum. And anything in particular coming up or something you want to talk about that's going on at the museum?
2 exhibitions. One is called With Child, and it is cutting edge for museums because museums have always chickened out of that subject, which is pregnancy. So when you think the Virgin Mary is never presented in a pregnant state. And so we bought, several years ago, we bought a painting of a pregnant nude. And we're organizing an exhibition around that, which will probably give us national visibility. We are working with the medical community in Worcester, so it's another connection point. But we are also promote this in Metro West, where there's a strong medical community again. And we hope to reach broader audiences with that. It's a smaller exhibition, but it will definitely make some headlines and make a lot of press outlets outside of Worcester spell our name correctly.
Oh, that's good. So that's one. You said there were
that's
two.
one. The other one opens in November 16th, and it is it's called Photo Revolution, and it shows how photography has been one of the driving forces in the 60s and 70s for artistic production. Think of Andy Warhol, but there are also other household names for art historians, at least, like Cindy Sherman, whose practice is just based on working with photography. And we got some great loans, and we can bring out of our basement works that hadn't been on view for a long time, such as pop art and so on. There's one work which is by Namjoon Paik, and it's screens, which is actually dedicated to a member of the Goddard family. And there you see also the connection between our industrialists and contemporary art, which was very strong and hopefully continues to be very strong.
Right. And those industrials, manufacturers, again, that employed people, carried the city for 100 years in terms of manufacturing being the #1 sector, much more diverse. Manufacturing still important. Healthcare is now the biggest, higher ed, financial services, and manufacturing. The other piece is you've had some, in the neighborhood, you've made some changes in the outside, more welcoming. Maybe just talk in the last minute or two we have about some of the physical improvements.
So one of the focal points for us is accessibility. Accessibility, physical accessibility, but also intellectual accessibility, because a lot of the art that we have, they don't say that much to people who have a different educational background. But let's focus, because you talked about the architectural envelope. So we have an access bridge on the Salisbury side, which was designed by a star in the architecture world. He now gets all the big commissions in Edinburgh, in Thailand, all over the world. Kula Padyantrasast is his name, and the architecture firm is Y Architecture. And what we tried to resolve is normally access bridges for people with disability or those who don't want to take stairs normally look damn ugly, actually. And how do you work with a historic facade which is listed and create a bridge that is not trying to, well, it's not ugly and it's not trying to be something that a bridge shouldn't be. And so we got lots of positive feedback. I'm a little bit biased because I like the work of this architect, but I think this was a success. Now we're attacking, literally attacking with a sledgehammer, our stairs on the Lancaster side. They did us the strategic favor of crumbling. So now we uncrumble them. It is a fabulous opportunity. And so we're looking at an entrance lobby on that side. And the first step towards that, realizing that entrance lobby will be that we have access on the street level to the museum, where people before had to use these now crumbling stairs, happily crumbling stairs.
Gotcha. Well, Matthias Waschek, Director of the Worcester Art Museum, thank you. We got a lot in, but a lot of exciting things. And as we talk about the Worcester Renaissance, which is real, and the momentum, our arts and cultural community have been really catalysts in helping that in lots of different ways.